Well, YouTubers, you would have seen from the thumbnail that what I'm going to do this week is use this beautiful piece of beech, and I'm going to put a resin rim on it. I've had this piece of beech been kicking about on. This is one of the half-finished projects that's been up on my shelf. I've got a feeling I'll probably put it there because it's got so many cracks in it, and I was a bit worried about using it. And I know it's been up there for at least 6 years because the chucking point I had on there was larger than my 50mm jewels, and that only fitted on the very first lathe I ever had. So I know that is at least 6 years old, but it is this beautiful bit of wood. There are quite a few cracks in there, and I will address them later on. So the first thing I want to do is get a nice chucking point on the bottom of there to fit my 50mm jewels. And then the other thing I do need, because it has moved slightly, and I noticed there was a small flat on the top which needs to be turned away. So that just all needs to be tidied up, cleaned up, sanded down, splits filled with sawdust and super glue, and then sanded down, ready for the resin pour really. So that's all sanded down. Got a fantastic finish on there. You see I've addressed all the cracks. I filled them all with super glue and sawdust. So that should give that piece some integrity. It's really lovely. What I want to do now is just cut a groove in the top of there, and that is where the resin's going to sit. So I'm just going to do that with my skew chisel. No, I'm not. I'm going to go and do that with my new carbide tip tool. Now I'm going to use now some of this acetate. I got this off the internet. It's just what they use for wrapping around cakes. I want to be very liberal with this. The last thing I want is for leaks. Now, the great thing I found about using this hot glue and this acetate is if it does leak anywhere, you can always give it a squirt of glue up underneath there and it will seal the crack. Right, very next thing then, we need to knock up some resin. Mix. You're not going to believe this, I just knocked up my first batch of resin, almost a great clap of thunder, and we got power cut, and that was a half hour ago, so I can't leave this resin any longer. So I've got the door of the workshop open and I've got a head torch on. Let's just hope this don't leak because I haven't got a hot glue gun to plug it. Alright, let's see what happens. Just leaking there, I'll pour that over the side. Well, I left that 3 days in the end for the resin to cure, and I did end up bringing it up in the house just to. On the second day it cured, but it felt a little bit squidgy, so I brought it up here and it's fully cured now. So I'm just going in with my chisel there. I've just taken all that glue off, that just fell away really. and I'm just going in there with my ball nose scraper because I did have only a very small leak down there. It wasn't much, but I have sort of gone down and stained the wood, so I just need to go down and clean that up and take that away, get it back to clean wood really, and try and keep the shape of that bowl at the same time. I quite like that shape. I had some that did leak down onto the bottom, and because it was sat on a piece of paper, so I've got the paper and the resin stuck together, so I'm just cleaning up the base of the bowl as well, and we're all good to go. So I just want to address the top of the bowl now, and just take that resin down and just shape it. What I want to do at the very top is just curve that over slightly so the actual top of the rim is just pointing in on itself slightly. So it will just follow that curve up and over, you'll see in a minute when I get there. And it does end up with a very nice shape. I've gone back to using my skew chisel now. I find that works a lot better on the resin. Just takes it away very nicely. I don't get any chatter marks or anything like that with it, so I'll just keep that. So again, you'll see the curve that I've carried on there. So it just turns back in on itself. Very nice. Well, I've sanded that bowl down to 600, and I'm just now going to apply some sanding sealer and some wax. And I have to say that beech was absolutely beautiful. It's really shiny before I even put on sand and sealer and wax. It really was lovely. So you see there the beech, very classic with those black specks in it. It's almost like layers of paper when you look at it on the side. This is lovely wood. Lovely to work with, lovely to look at. Really hard, very durable wood. So next I'm just going to apply the wax. I'm using a microcrystalline wax on this one. No particular reason, it's just I've got a tin of it, so I want to use it. But you can see the fantastic shine that appears on that wood straight away. You can see the light being reflected in there. Absolutely beautiful. So I'm just using a clean bit of cloth there just to buff that up, get a bit of heat into it. And that is absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful. Now I have just bought a brand new 4K camera to record these videos with, and I'm not quite sure what I've done because I've got no sound over this next piece. So I'm going to have to go back and have a look at the camera and see what it is I've done to it. But I'll just quickly talk you through this. I've used several tools on here. I've got a small, I think it's about a 3/8 bowl gauge I use on here. I use that one because it's nice and long, and it's my preferred tool that I use. When I first got it, it took me a long time to get used to using it, but once I did, it's the one I go for every time. I've also got a 1/2 inch bowl gauge that I use, and it's got a very shallow grind. It's this one I'm using at the moment. It's very shallow grind, and it allows me to go across the bottom and still rub the bevel as I go across. I'm also using here, I've got a 25mm ball nose scraper, because what I want to do is just go in underneath where that resin is and just give that a very fine undercut in there, just to follow the shape of the outside of the bowl. So these are the tools I'm using. There's also, as I started getting down through it, a big crack appeared in the bottom, and part of it was already filled, I think, with black resin. It may have been just the super glue that I used when I glued the bottom of the bowl, but it does look like black resin to me. But there was two parts to it, and one I filled with sawdust and super glue, which was brown, and the other piece was black, which makes me think it was the resin. So I'm just using this, so I've just been across and sharpened this chisel up, and the shavings come off. It's like angel hair, it's so fine coming off of there. Really is lovely. So that's all the hollowing done. I've also sanded it all down. You can see the large crack that opened in there, and you see the two halves, one's brown and one's darker. And I've already applied the sand sealer. I'm just giving this a quick buff, but you can see already the fantastic shine that's appearing on there. So now I'm just going in with a wax. Again, I'm using the microcrystalline wax and just putting a really lovely shine on there. Beautiful finish. That really is nice. And there we have the finished item, one beech bowl with a resin rim. I was really quite pleased with this, how it came out. It's so simple to do with the hot glue and the acetate roll. All of your bowls, you could put a lovely rim on all of them, change the colour. I mean, you could even put rings in there if you wanted to, different coloured rings. You know, if you start experimenting, I'm sure you could do also. You could even carve people's names in the side and fill them with resin. I think they'd be really nice, really pretty bowls. All different colours as well. So there we go. Well, I hope this has given you a little bit of inclination or inspiration, and you go away and give it a go yourself. If you're successful with it, please let me know how you get on with it. I'd be quite interested to see, or even if you come up with some other ideas. I think the other thing that I would have done with this, possibly if I did it again, I would have made that groove a lot deeper at the top, so I didn't have the wood. I would have the resin. Although it is quite nice seeing the wood inside the bowl. Maybe I would have put a solid resin ring around the top and just see what that looks like. I think possibly even if you put a ring around and might put it clear resin, I think that would actually look quite nice as well. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you all again next week. Bye bye.